Well, welcome everybody to another episode of the LOG Nerdcast. Um, we've got special guest here today, Mr. Matt Akridge. Thanks for joining us and all your busy schedule. I'm hoping you're getting some sleep these days with all
Oh,
this
no,
school
no, no,
training.
but I'm happy to be doing this, on a lunch hour, so
Absolutely, it's a great way to
so
spend our lunch hour talking about your awesome team. Yeah.
no, no.
I'm sure everybody wants to hear the secret sauce to getting to 7-1 and being our leader right now in the
You
standings.
know, just play bad teams every week. That's all there is to it. I don't know.
Are you a little miffed by our comments, last week or
I was until Bryce also laid an egg for him this week. I feel like I don't have a ton of room to really,
but you
be
played
be
great. You had a
yeah,
great week,
I
so
definitely
it's not
had
like you went out there. I think that's the thing. We can look at how that's going, but you're still scoring like top two or three or whatever. I haven't looked today,
Yeah,
but
I think David and I functionally have the same number of points, so it's I think Waldrop and Bryce are 1, 2, uh,
mhm,
like functionally the same, and then David and I are a little bit back of that. So yeah,
cool.
you know,
Well, I've been asking all the guests kind of what their thoughts are so far on Dynasty. It's been a wild ride so far, in my opinion. But what are your
yeah.
takes
No,
on it so far?
this is a lot of fun. I feel like we've been going in bursts, and like every time there's like a flurry of trades, I think like okay, this is where the music stops, and like you either have a chair or you don't, and then like a week later, Tyler Murray gets traded 4 times in a day.
No. It's pretty wild.
Yeah,
Yeah, it seems like the team needs change pretty quickly. We have some people like Zach who just pivot like crazy, and that's always
I mean,
fun.
yeah, I think Zach is basically the Joker from the Batman movies, right? Like maybe he has a plan, maybe he doesn't, but it's a lot of fun to watch, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
But I was just gonna say, I think like to your question about Dynasty, like something that I'm still trying to come to grips with, and like thinking about it in terms of that Josh Bryce trade from last night. It's just like the time horizon that we're actually working with here, right? Like where you have a trade that involves DeAndre Hopkins, George Kittle, and Wandale Robinson, and like maybe in 2 years, Wandale Robinson is the only one of those three players in the league.
yeah, yeah. It's crazy to think about.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I tried my best to rationalize it. I do feel like you look at Hopkins, what he's done the past couple of weeks. He's been crazy good. He's still elite. In
yeah,
two years, could he be out of the league? Yeah.
yeah.
Could he be
In
still
2 weeks,
pretty good in 2 years? Yeah.
in 2 weeks, depending on when they do the drug testing, But
Exactly. Yeah, so it's pretty tough to think about these things. It's like some, like it's all about age and talent, and right now, like the old players with talent on keep trade cut, they look like steals.
yeah,
And that's how you win championships. You don't. Yeah, a lot of times people talk about this. You don't win championships with like some pretty team with like all the best young dynasty assets most of the time because you can't afford all those players, right? Like Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, those kind of guys are untouchable. But in most cases, although I've been trying my best to get Jamar Chase, I think every single week from Josh, he's probably
yeah.
sick of that. But
It seems like he's on a no trade list,
no
which is
trade list, yeah.
more than fair. More than fair.
Um, so I feel like you haven't been like super active on the trade market. You see like a bunch of trades go down. In terms of like behind the scenes though, are you looking for offers pretty constantly? What's
I'm like checking everybody's quarterback room pretty much like once every couple days, and just being stumped on what to do
right?
with it. I don't know. I also like I don't know. I'm trying to the extent possible, and the answer might be that it's not possible to like have as open a window as possible, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and not just be like, okay, I'm gonna like try to win for 2 years and then like
Yeah.
Godspeed after that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You've got a
'Cause,
really interesting team. I'm gonna pull up your team on this. So
yeah,
I it got your team up here. And yeah, you've got a really interesting team because you do have a mix here of young and old, and like you're talking about your window. It's not super obvious to me what your window necessarily is. You could win.
yeah,
You could be competitive for several years. Um,
I think so. Although I do think, fairly often back to I think after week one this season, when you told me that you would trade a lot for DeAndre Swift, and I just think, well, maybe I should have capitalized on that.
yeah, yeah. So Swift is one of those dudes that's like a dynasty darling, and
Yeah,
he's just always hurt. And
yeah,
Jamal Williams is always there, and
man.
the Lions still aren't good, despite all the hard knocks we've watched, despite everything. Really wanted to believe the Lions are good, but they're just not. They're
I
not that
should have
good.
known after Hard Knocks that Jamal Williams was going to get the goal line work.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, that
Which
dude,
is
he is a
which is
hard
just
knocks
loving
champion.
too much. Loving too much.
um, but anyway, so your team's looking great. You're 7-1 so far, and I look at it
Yeah.
and it's like, man, there's not a bad spot here besides
Well,
quarterback,
yeah,
right? The
yeah.
quarterback's the only spot that's like iffy. But what's crazy about it is that at the draft, I mean, you thought you locked up your quarterback of the future with like a fifth or
That's
sixth
what.
round
Yeah,
pick or something like that.
I went into the draft wanting to get like a quarterback that I didn't have to worry about and a tight end that I didn't have to worry about,
Yeah.
and I thought I did that.
Broncos
And
country, let's ride. Here he is.
it is limited. Um, but yeah, Mark Andrews has been a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
The tight end position. I've never had a good tight end before, and so that's been a fun
Yeah.
ride for the most part.
Yeah. So have you been in on every I know you've asked me for, some quarterback trades. You've been scouring the market just in case, or have the last
Yeah,
2 weeks
I have
kind
been.
of given you some hope?
Well, no, I mean, no, like it can't get much worse. But I think like what I'm running into, or at least my pet theory on this is that there's not like a middle age to older like good to great set of quarterbacks anymore, right? Like Tom
Right.
Brady, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, like that group that's old and presumably wouldn't cost much in a dynasty. Like they're also bad,
Yep.
and so just looking at our league, like the teams that are out of it this year, like or close to out of it, or like could start being sellers. It's like Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert. Like they're
They're not
it's
selling those guys. They're keeping those
right.
guys
Like
because they're
penny
great.
thinking, like I'm out of the playoffs this year. Let me get rid of Justin Herbert
Right.
because quarterback for the next 15 years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
And
that's hard. That's
yeah,
why these Kyler trades all go down. People are looking to try and get into that Kyler sweepstakes. It seems
I
like.
know, I know.
I
That's
get that. It is a one quarterback league, and I know everybody like wants to lock down the quarterback of the future. Quarterback scoring is down so hard right now
yeah.
in general that maybe Russell Wilson is like just fine for you. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. Like it's yeah. Like I don't know. Like there's some like Titanic deck chair shuffling that I feel like I could do, right? Like trading for some quarterbacks that are basically putting up the same as Russell Wilson,
Right.
but I don't want to like give up whatever I have to give up to like, get the same mediocre production,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I feel like if you could have gotten in the Dak sweepstakes somehow, that would have been a nice entry because he feels like the
Yeah,
kind of he still could have big games,
Yeah,
and he's not too old.
I agree. I was told that the DAX sweepstakes were closed right before they opened again.
I'm sure. I'm sorry. Sorry to open up old wounds here.
No, no. I think the offer was something like a second, third, and a fourth. Um, was talking with Edmonton one night, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I'll think about it and get back to you." And then the next thing I saw was the completed trade. I was like, "Oh, okay."
Okay.
Uh,
Well,
I don't know. I would. I've let Josh know that to keep me in mind if Tua goes on
yeah.
uh, the market at all. I feel like that's kind of a like I don't know better than Wilson, but like not prohibitively expensive player.
Yeah, you could be getting on the ground floor here, something great. Who knows? To a like
Yeah.
Waddle and Tyreek or just an
Or like
amazing combo.
even if not something great, like what Kirk Cousins has been for 4 years, right? Like with
Right. Yeah,
Diggs and
there's just not a lot of Kirk Cousins this year. I think that's a good point that you're
yeah,
making. It's like there's just not a lot of like cheap mid-range options that
yeah,
we usually think of in these leagues. Like in past years for like our redraft leagues, it was, you could win with like a cheap quarterback.
absolutely.
And there was a lot of them. It was easy to
Yeah,
find, but it's either you're starting, Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady, who are terrible. You might as well be starting guys like Zach Wilson or like just
yeah,
like
exactly.
these young guys who maybe turn into something. Who knows? There's just not a lot of upside with
Well,
these
yeah,
old
and that's
guys.
kind of my thought. Like I don't really have. I think I have like a fourth round pick this year, but
Hmm.
at some point, part of my thinking is that like quarterbacks get drafted, and like there are going to be more quarterbacks on the waiver wire, like somewhere between your Davis Mills and your Zach Wilsons, right? And like maybe one of those pans out.
Yeah, like Gino,
Yeah,
who it came
and
out of nowhere this year. Gino,
exactly,
one
exactly.
one of my most lopsidedly bad trades. Trading Geno Smith for Dawson Knox.
Well, it's
Yeah,
hard to
hard.
imagine you can keep that up. But like even somebody like Marcus Mariota, who's like
Ugh,
I don't know, like Jalen Hurts was last year, right? Like
right.
don't don't ever watch the game, but like be okay by the end.
Right. Yeah. Well, so yeah, you'll just have to be on the lookout. You don't have any picks, so you're not really like in the Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Will
No,
Levis sweepstakes right now.
I'm fine not being in the Will Levis sweeps.
He's so
Enjoy,
gifted, but
enjoy your pick, somebody.
yeah, no, I understand that.
Uh,
Okay, so maybe not, and you haven't traded your 25 picks. We're kind of jumping to that section
yeah,
when you were bringing that up, which is good to kind of keep in mind. So like this year and next year, you're kind of out on unless you trade a player
yeah.
for a pick, then you're kind of out on getting one of those young quarterbacks, which might be okay. Maybe I think what you're hoping for is Hackett gets fired and the Broncos get a real coach, and then someone figures out how to run a Russell Wilson offense. But
Well, yeah. What I was just thinking about when we were talking about Tua, like if you grab somebody that has like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, like if they're a competent quarterback with two great receivers, they're going to put up numbers. And then I
mhm.
remember Cortland Sutton and Jerry Judy are pretty good, and that hasn't.
Yeah, in theory, man. Yeah, Judy seems like he's a frustrating guy to own. I feel
Yeah,
like he's done better the past couple weeks. But anyway, so you got a QB situation, but like the rest of your roster is ridiculous. And the thing about it that strikes me is like they're not all old, right?
yeah, yeah.
Like you typically with these types of teams that you go down the list, it's like, okay, Joe Mixon, Alvin Kamara, DeAndre Swift, Ramondre Stevenson. Like that's a sick running back room. Joe Mixon's older, Alvin Kamara's old, but you've got Swift and Stevenson who are young, and
Yeah,
Jalen Warren looks like a pretty nice person to have around just in case. He looks
yeah.
pretty strong. So
Yeah. Ronnie Rivers.
Ronnie Rivers, got to bring up him and Sincere McCormick, who I think you're just keeping on your taxi squad because he has an awesome name.
Oh, but, it doesn't. No sense in dropping him now, right?
Yeah. But I don't think there's much to think about here. You've got guys who are scoring points right now. You're going to keep them. You need them to win. This is the kind of the heart of your team. You can start four of these guys every week and just kind of dominate with consistent points.
Yeah.
And from what I can tell, I don't know. Um,
Yeah, and this like I don't know. The only trade that I have like somewhat regretted, and I don't even know if I mean that, is the Devonte Adams for Damian Pierce
mhm.
trade that. And I think I gave up some pick capital in that as well. Um, that
Yeah.
feels like a better trade now that I'm looking at my wide receivers here and a little
Yeah, so like, okay, yeah, you give up Damian Pierce, but you're
who
gonna be
like
able to start four running backs right now that are good, and Gus Edwards break glass in case of emergency
yeah.
kind of dude.
And I think that trade on balance, like 2 years from now, who's likelier to still be good, like Devonte Adams or Damian Pierce? Like I think odds are probably it's a wash, and they're both like mediocre players, right?
Yeah,
Um,
I feel that way, but we'll see if Damian Pierce keeps proving me wrong.
yeah,
He looks pretty
yeah,
good these days, but
that, yeah. That was the first one where I was like, okay, I am like actively giving up some future stuff
mhm.
for like get better now, and like something like the AJ Brown trade, like that felt pretty easy to me because he's 25. Like he should be able to do this for a long time. But I think maybe one of the things about Dynasty that I didn't consider is that like if you decide you're going all in on a year, there's I don't know, to some extent like an arms race that happens, and you have to keep up,
Right.
uh, with like the Alex trades and what Bryce is doing now and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't know.
it's true. But that AJ Brown trade was just awesome for you. You got a young receiver who just I mean, no none of us knew how the Eagles offense was going to be
Yeah,
I mean, we thought it would be good, but we also thought it would be a situation where AJ Brown would maybe have a good week and then Devontae Smith would have a good week and they'd kind of trade off, and it's been more just like AJ Brown's been really really good and sometimes Devontae Smith is good too.
yeah,
And Jalen Hurts is just amazing. So he's just a consistent I think you put him in the conversation with the Jamar Chase kind of players almost at this point. It's like maybe that's ridiculous overstepping.
Jordan, I did try to do that when I was talking to Josh this week, and
Yeah,
it didn't go exactly as
as
planned.
planned. Yeah, I don't know. He's just keeps putting up awesome numbers. He's one of those dudes
Yeah,
that you see him catch a pass in between like three guys, and it looks so easy.
yeah,
He's just like crazy talented and easy for Hertz to hit. Like Hertz needed somebody that could win like that. Just throw the ball up, and
exactly. Yeah,
I don't know. He's just very young too. I mean
he's
that's
either going to catch it or knock it down so that it's not.
yeah, it's a
That's
great
it's,
target. So you got him. You got Devontae Adams, who commands like 10 targets a game.
yeah,
Uh, I still am frustrated with watching the Raiders and how they run an offense. It's so
yeah,
confusing sometimes. When they're feeding Josh Jacobs, this is a great offense. They need Darren Waller back. We'll see how it goes. But Devontae Adams is a perfect wide receiver too for your team. And
yeah.
then you've got
He should
Sutton
be.
as a flex. So that's great.
Yeah, if anybody that's watching this is playing for next year, happy to trade Calvin Ridley for.
Yeah, he's actually he's probably the last piece that's kind of interesting to talk about. You got Lazard, who could be a
Yeah,
plug and play if needed, but
yeah. He should
Calvin
be.
Ridley, we'll see what he turns into next year. He was really good before, so maybe with all the attention on Pitts in London, he can come in and be a really big piece with their new quarterback or running back or whatever they have going on in their
Yeah,
offense. But as of right now, that's a running offense,
yeah.
and even Pitts and London aren't that great to start on a week to week basis because they just run the ball and they do it really well and they win
Less
games.
less than 20 passes a game, right?
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that averaging?
Yeah, they're just awesome at it. I mean, it seems like
Yeah,
they can plug in anybody and they are an awesome offense still. Not awesome's the wrong word, but they're like very competent.
yeah,
And that's kind of scary for like the skill position players on a week to
yeah.
week basis. So, yeah, Sutton hopefully he picks it up, and you've got yourself, a solid wide receiver too there. We'll see. The Russ saga, you're kind of doubly tied to that Broncos offense, which is annoying, but hopefully they pick it up over
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Um,
We'll see.
and then, so yeah, I'm not too worried about your wide receiver room like next year.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 years from now, we start thinking, okay, is Devontae Adams still a top dude?
Definitely.
But hopefully
Yeah.
Cortland Sutton or Calvin Ridley or one of those guys is more elite than.
Yeah.
Um, but
Probably not going to be Jalen Tolbert. He's
not
the
gonna not gonna be Jalen Tolbert. Yeah,
wide
probably not. Not looking great for him.
the wide receiver experience of drafting Trey Sermon last year. Like,
Exactly the
this
same.
guy's not active. Cool, 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 cool.
Except didn't Trey Sermon have even higher draft capital? He was pretty high, wasn't he? Was he a second?
Hey, hey, just to give everybody an idea of when we're doing this, TJ Hawkinson being traded to the Vikings.
How exciting! I was wondering if that was gonna happen today since we were
Yeah,
recording. I was like,
yeah,
I'm really hoping so. So TJ Hawkinson on the Vikings, that ought to be interesting. I wonder what they gave up. I'm sure they won't tell us for a hot minute, but
so,
what does that even mean for the Lions? Like, I'm trying to think
Alf-
of it from like a dynasty perspective, even. Like you're building your team and you got this young, good tight end. You trade him.
I mean, you're trying to pass more to Swift and like what's the
Jameson Williams,
receiver Lewis is always trying to get.
Jameson Williams, and me. Don't count me out. I've sent in numerous offers for Jameson
Maybe
Williams.
is he coming back? Is he close to being
He's
back? Or
he's not back yet, and they won't give a timetable on it. But this might mean the timetable is looking pretty good.
yeah,
But still, he's not a tight end. It's not like he's going out there and
yeah,
lining up at tight end. So they still have to they must feel pretty good about either someone, maybe they're trying to draft a good tight end, and don't feel as confident in him. I don't
I
know.
guess.
It's a weird trade to me that they trade a good young
No,
player who they invested in heavily several years ago. He was like a first round pick on day one pick. But anyway, that's cool.
is so I had been kind of hoping not to, well, I guess yes, to take it back to my team. Had kind of been hoping that like in the next couple years, I don't even remember his name now. Whichever KJ is on the Vikings, Osborne, is he on
Yeah,
the Vikings?
KJ Osborne. Yeah, he's on the Vikings. Yeah,
That he would be like a Thielen replacement, but
he
I wonder
should
if that.
be. He should be in
Well,
theory be the Thielen
I wonder.
replacement.
I wonder if Hawkinson is. I wonder if that's the plan. Like,
It could
think
be that offense would be amazing with Hawkinson and Jeffrey. J. Jeff. He's so good. Justin Jefferson, and then I don't know. I couldn't think of that right away. Brain fart. And then, I mean, Adam Thielen is old as can be, but KJ Osborne should step in as a wide receiver too. I guess I'm wondering what happens to Irv Smith after this. It should be interesting. He's
yeah,
a guy that people always like for fantasy. He hasn't really done much, but
he got hurt this week, didn't he? Did I make that up?
you might be right, and that might be part of the reason they want to trade because they're doing. I mean, the Vikings are winning games. Like they're a good team this year. So
Yeah, they've lost to the Eagles, is all right. Like,
yeah, so maybe they're just
or
going for it, going all in. Pulling the wall drip. Trading all their picks for Travis Kelsey. Um, but anyway, speaking of your back to your team, we got your tight end room here. Nothing to talk about other than I like that you've got Noah Gray as a future piece. I think that's the
yeah,
thing to talk about.
maybe. Who
Yeah,
knows?
who
Who
knows?
knows?
He could be something. He could be a big part of that offense. He's a good stash. He's one of those guys that I was hoping to get just to like have just in case,
Mhm.
just to see what happens because Kelsey's not going to be around forever. So
Yeah, and then I don't think he's here, but on my taxi maybe I have Jake Ferguson, the
oh
Cowboys.
yeah, I'm sorry I messed that up.
No, no, no. Who like I saw had some points this week, and I got excited, but it was the classic 6.6 points, which was one reception for 1 yard and a touchdown.
Yep, yep. No, but people like
Maybe
him a
not.
lot. I wish I put him on the list because he's kind of like they don't have Schultz signed for the next year, so he could be the guy next year. Although Schultz looks a lot better now
Yeah,
with Dak back, seems like they have a good connection. So we'll see what they do there with that team. But that's an interesting hold too. I really like
yeah,
these kind of plays in Dynasty where you're like holding a guy for the next year and just seeing what happens. Like if you don't expect much out of it, let's say he pops and becomes the tight end, then you can trade him for a pick, or like you don't need to start him. You've got Mark Andrews. There's
well,
no you're set for ever at tight end.
yeah. I think maybe there's some value in like holding a couple of those guys at tight end, right? Because like
Mm,
if I don't know, like if Jalen Warren becomes a top 30 running back, like who cares, you know? But if Noah Gray or Jake Ferguson is like a top 10 or top 8 tight end, like that has value for people, you know?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely, because that position is very weak. So you have a huge advantage every week right now with Mark Andrews when he's healthy,
Yeah.
and which has been a little bit of a question mark this year, but. I feel like we've kind of gone over a lot of these questions. I mean, I would call your core players guys like DeAndre Swift, AJ Brown, Mark Andrews, and then you could pick some of these other guys, but those are guys you build around, and then you're kind of in that stage of contention. So you've got
Yeah.
you've got the Devonte Adams, Alvin Kamara, Joe Mixons of the world on your team to score a ton of points, maybe not forever. So I don't necessarily think like 4 years from now we're expecting those guys to be on your team, but definitely AJ Brown, Mark Andrews, and Swift could be there on your team. Could be like a core dude because he's a top 5 running back in Dynasty, I think still.
Yeah, I think so. But we'll see.
We'll
We'll see.
see. We'll
Hopefully,
see. All right. Well, just keep
Jamal
me
Williams
keep
goes-
keep keep me close on any trades. Don't trade him in the middle of the
hopefully
night.
Jamal Williams goes somewhere in the offseason and we can,
Right.
get
And
back
yeah,
to
you don't have really a lot of picks. You have a second from Zach for 2024, so maybe in
yeah.
2024 you can grab something to bolster your bench. But you haven't traded with
Yeah.
2025, which I appreciate. That's really the all-in move where things could go haywire.
Well, and I think like I don't know, it depends how this season goes, but I feel like there are some players like that you can always like in the off season or even at the draft, like flip a Devonte Adams or a Chimera for, hopefully some picks and maybe get back in it that way.
Yeah, that's an interesting position to be in when you've got these older guys and you still want to contend. Is it like, do you keep them and they kind of just rot on your team but score you the
Yeah.
points that you need, or
Yeah.
do you flip them and try and pick somebody to kind of replace their production or at least help you out a little bit in the future?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
really
Well,
interesting conundrum. There's always something interesting to think about, no matter your team. I think.
yeah.
Um,
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think like I don't know if you want to transition into some of the trades from yesterday and the last week, but there's some interesting things.
yeah,
I think you made pretty close to the platonic ideal of like a tanking team trade yesterday, right?
yes,
With getting Brees Hall in a first, is that right?
yeah. I traded for Brees Hall, which I mean, he's a running back, which is always a little scary to be kind of building your team around. But he's one of those dudes that catches the ball and looks
Yeah,
amazing, and he's hurt.
yeah. But I think 2 weeks ago, the number one player in Dynasty, right? Like,
Right, yeah. Short
yeah,
memory. He was pretty good.
yeah,
But, I think Chase got some good pieces to make a run
mhm,
at it this year. And he got some young pieces too. It's like
yeah,
none of them are old. So that's kind of nice. I mean, so that's the thing. Like you look at that trade and it's like, well, could he have gotten better players? Yeah, he could have gotten like the Hopkins, maybe like Hopkins scores
mhm.
more points than these guys. But he opted to trade Brees for young players and like not completely mortgage his future, but there's some
Yeah.
uncertainty baked into some of these guys.
I mean,
Uh,
Metcalf is still probably a number one receiver in five
yeah,
years, right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, and he's
On
definitely the dude I'm most worried about. Fryermuth is good too, though. I mean, I've always
yeah,
talked about how awesome he is, but that offense is tough to evaluate right now. It's a really bad
I was
offense.
I was looking at your team after, and it's crazy to me that DJ Moore is 1 year older than DK Metcalf.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
DJ Moore's been in the league for 10 years.
yeah. He's so young, but we'll see what happens with him. Maybe he'll have
Yeah,
XFL legend PJ Walker throwing to him for the rest of his career. Who knows? But that might be okay. That might be okay
yeah.
after that long
Something,
touchdown.
something like these last 2 weeks were the first time he's had a top 10 or top 8
Yeah,
uh,
he's been bad.
fantasy finish
He's been so
back
bad.
to back in his career. Yeah,
Oh yeah, in his career, yeah, he's been
yeah.
very
It's
he's been very
unbelievable.
consistent at finishing like the same kind of wide receiver two level, but
Yeah,
in terms of just breakout games, yeah, he's been pretty abysmal. I don't know. I think he's one of those dudes that you just gotta hold on to and hope he blossoms into the talent you think he is talented. I'm just hoping he blossoms into that really wide receiver one dude. I was hoping he'd get traded to the Chiefs, honestly. If that would have been great. But
I mean, yeah, that'd be unbelievable.
yeah,
But I don't know. I think you've got a team that like things go right, like you can be right back in this even next year, if not 2 years.
yeah, we'll see how my picks go and if they can quickly acclimate. That's the only thing with the rookies. You just never know. They could come out hot or they could be pretty worthless for a year. So hopefully I pick well, and then if I want to, I could trade off some of these 2024 picks and be more competitive next year. But I do have a lot of 2024 picks. I'm probably not trading that Waldrop pick unless somebody for in 2025, unless somebody just comes with a Godfather offer. If
I feel
anything, I just want to see what happens with it. I want to be there to pick the player after the nursing home retires. It'll be great. Although, maybe we should talk about that trade. That three
yeah,
team trade. I know we're skipping around, but because there was a lot
no,
of
yeah.
trades, but that three-team trade was crazy. I'm gonna pull that up on my phone. Um, let's
Sorry, I was just
see. Oh
looking at
my.
all the 2024 picks. That's quite the haul.
What,
Or
me? Are
for
you talking about me?
Yeah,
Yeah, I do have like an enormous amount of 2021 picks or 2024 picks. I guess I'm invested in that draft.
I guess
Somehow.
so.
But
So
yeah,
which three team are we talking about?
so I want to talk about the Waldrop Justin Zach trade.
Yeah,
This trade is insane. Um, I think it's definitely one of the. So we're kind of done with the talking about your team here. Let's just put that away. Your team is good. There's probably not a lot of decisions to make right this
there.
second. You wish you maybe got in on the sweepstakes of DeAndre Hopkins, but I don't know what you would even trade it away. I think
I
you're in
know.
a good spot. So
Yeah.
let's just put that away for now. So
Can I,
let's
can I
let
say one? Can I say one general trade thing before we get
yeah,
into
sure,
these?
absolutely.
I wonder. I know that you've already adjusted this, but I wonder if it makes sense to kick back the trade deadline like a couple more weeks, like week 10 or 11 or something like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so there's a lot of philosophies here. There's a lot of leagues that don't play with the trade deadline at all. Because in Dynasty, it's like you trade for a championship, but then you have to live with it forever. Like
Yeah,
there are long term consequences to your trades. So a lot of people don't care when the trades happen. It does seem kind of lame though to be in the playoffs. I at least cut it off at the playoffs because it feels lame to go into the playoffs and all of a sudden a new super team emerges just because they
that's
traded off all
yeah,
their
that's what
picks.
I'm thinking. Like, to have it be like to have the trade line to have trades still active like as the playoff teams are getting set.
Right.
I don't, seems strange, but
And we could definitely talk about it. I don't really care if it's I'm not nitpicking. It could be week 11, something like that. I'd be totally cool with that. And
I'm
and
also
we could talk about it as league. So everybody, we should talk about that after this episode comes out.
I'm, I'm also trying to protect myself from myself.
Oh
So
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think there's some people in this league that would appreciate that. I think there's a lot of people like that. So let's talk about this trade. So
Right.
So it's a first three-team trade. I just want to say bravo, bravo, everybody involved in this. I think Zach orchestrated a lot of it. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Lewis has also been, I'm sure I'm not the only person who's seen this, trying to, and I respect this, like organize some like arbitrage three teamers where like he just connects people and then also takes a fourth round pick for his trouble, which
yeah, yeah,
I
no, he's
respect.
hustling. He's hustling. He's like buying picks. I love it. It's like cash considerations. He's sitting out. He's like, here's $25 in
Exactly.
Fab. I'll take your fourth round pick. It's like I wouldn't even have thought of that. I think that's brilliant.
Absolutely.
You
No,
know,
he is
he's
hustling on this stuff.
but uh but yeah, he's never like giving up a pick or anything in these things. It's like Fab. Which cracks me up. But so Justin is part of the trade. He trades away Keenan Allen and his own second round pick for a first from Zach, and that first from Zach is looking better and better every day. I think.
Man, who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? But it seems like he's made moves to not win right
Yeah.
now necessarily. He could have kept some of these other guys to um, win now. So maybe that ends up being JSN or Jordan Addison or some good
Yeah.
receiver, or you get like a Sean Tucker, or I don't know what running backs are going to fall in that range, but someone like that.
I will be honest, I have not paid attention to the mock drafts yet.
No,
But
it's totally fine. I'm just saying names that I know, so I can sound like I know what I'm talking about. So he gives away Keenan Allen, who's not going to do anything for his team, and his own second,
yeah,
which could
I
be
mean
a
that.
could be like the 15th, 16th, 17th pick, somewhere around that range in the draft for to
that
upgrade
feels
to the seventh.
that feels like not a lot for Keenan Allen in a second, but like I don't know, to what we were talking about earlier, like maybe Keenan Allen's just a guy on the wrong side of 30 with bad hamstrings, like
Right.
that's a real possibility.
Yeah,
Uh,
and with that second round pick, what does he get? Like maybe a backup running back, maybe.
yeah,
But who knows what that ends up being? It could be Damian Pierce, could be a backup running back, like Isaiah Spiller, who hasn't done anything this year. Um,
yeah, absolutely.
so he's kind of upgrading for that talent, going for that talent. That sort of makes sense. And then, but Waldrop, I feel like the Waldrop part of the trade is the good part to me. Uh, so he somehow managed to trade away Hollywood, who's hurt, not going to do anything for him for the next few weeks, and Young and good, and Kyler Murray, who is obviously a good player, for Dak Prescott, who's pretty equally, older but equally good.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
you've got 4 years there, right? And like Kyler runs a little bit more. I think those are probably the only differences of note, right?
right, exactly. And then he gets Keenan Allen from Justin and Godwin, who's young still,
Yeah.
26. So
Yeah.
I mean, he's staying afloat. He's staying afloat even after all. Waldrop's had some tough injuries to deal with Mike Williams and Hollywood.
Yeah.
So and then
Yeah.
he's also had to deal with Allen Robinson being bad.
That's fair.
So
And then I think like also the important context of like this was Alex has no picks ever and like basically had to win this game against Josh, right?
mhm,
And so like that's worth something. Like even if you think, going into next season, if you would rather have Kyler and Hollywood versus those three guys, like you need you need guys that are playing now,
right,
right?
exactly. And so at the end of this, Zach gets Hollywood. He gets the second from Justin, and he gets Kyler Murray. He does give away his first, so like maybe Hollywood for his first, and then downgrades to or upgrades to Kyler, and yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting trade. I think if you really like Kyler a lot more than Dak, it makes a lot of sense, and you get to keep Hollywood, but he is giving away his pick, so it's like a weird plus minus to me for Zach on this one. That
Yeah, that's true. I don't know, the vibe I get just based on activity at least is that Zach is thinking in terms of assets, right? And maybe Kyler is just something that excites people more than something like Dak.
Yeah,
Um,
because you could maybe trade Kyler for Saquon
maybe
down the road,
we
which happens
sure might be able to.
right
Yeah,
after this trade. So anyway, it was a cool three-team trade.
yeah.
I think it's just amazing to me that Waldrop's like staying afloat with all this craziness. But
I mean, staying afloat and like to be fair to him, like I think has the most points in the league, like in terms of points scored, right, or points for.
right,
Uh,
yeah,
had some bad luck. Yeah, he's had. Yeah, he and Bryce are the only people over 1,000 points for. Um,
so
yeah,
there you go.
and
All right,
also,
so talk to me. We brought this trade up a little bit, but as a contender, were you kind of frustrated when the Hopkins Kittle trade goes down and Bryce gets even that much stronger?
I mean, less frustrated than if it had been before I played Bryce.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, no, I mean, like Bryce has a juggernaut. Like there's only so much you can do on that. I yeah, I don't know. Sorry, I'm trying to pull it up just to look at it again. I just like David Njoku like doesn't really do much for me.
Hmm.
But I guess he is like again. I don't know. Tight end ages are tough because it's not like you don't have a lot of guys that like come out at 23 and 24 and do anything.
Hmm.
Um, but it feels like you have to like kind of think of them differently.
So they take a couple years to like figure out the offense and figure out how to
Yeah,
block and all this stuff.
yeah,
And then Njoku like just didn't do that, but then he did after
yeah,
like a couple more years. And it was
right.
like, what is going on with this dude? So now he's like physically talented. He's on a big contract. I think the interesting part is like what happens if Watson comes back and he becomes like a top five tight end somehow.
Yeah,
But it's not like
I
Watson threw
think,
to the tight end before, so I don't even know what this offense is going to be. I have no idea what to
yeah,
make of the Browns offense when Watson comes
and
back.
I think I just like kind of deleted Njoku from like any thoughts in my
Hmm.
head because I think like did they have Hooper last year? Is that right?
They had Hooper last year, and then they have Harrison Bryant, who's really good as like
Yeah,
a third string. Well, now he's the second string guy, and it's
I
like,
mean, at some point last season, I think Njoku was like, I was demanding a trade and like wasn't getting any playing time, and so I guess like they resolved that without telling me about it, which is fine. Um,
yeah, he's had a
but
good
yes,
year. He's no doubt he's had a
yeah,
good year. Now he's injured, so Bryce needed a tight
yes,
end. So he went after the most injured tight end
yeah,
in George
yeah,
Kittle. But so that's a great trade for Bryce. So Josh gets a second, so that could be that's a second
this
um,
year.
this year from Bryce, which is
That's
gonna
probably not going to be
be like probably pick 25 to 28 range, somewhere around there. I'd have to guess.
good.
Trying to even think of guys on that list. I don't even know who's down there at pick 25 to 28. You could hit gold there, but I'm not going to
Sure.
count that as much of anything. And then Wandale is pretty much the whole trade to me. Kind of buying low on him. But yeah, we'll
Yeah,
see.
and like he's
He's the guy.
21 on a team that doesn't have any receivers. Like
Mm-mm.
that's something. Um,
But yeah, that's tough. Um, Trying to look through other ones that have happened.
I think that let's see, what was it? The Saquon for Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
Like that makes me as someone that has to play Eddie in a few weeks. Like I would rather he have Jonathan Taylor than Saquon. You know what I mean? Like
What a wild trade. Uh, you know, Eddie Eddie is getting a third and Barkley for the number one overall pick in our league this year, Jonathan Taylor, and it kind of makes him better. I
no,
mean,
it absolutely does.
yeah,
Yeah,
Saquon's a beast this year. So he gets, Zach gets to keep Jonathan Taylor, who's still young and talented, a few years younger than Saquon, 3 or 4 years younger, maybe
At 2 years,
just
two
two.
years younger, two
Oh,
years younger.
I
Two,
had in
three.
my head it was like 3 or 4 years. Wow.
I know.
So a younger running back on a team that likes to run the ball. In theory, Jonathan Taylor should be good, but that Colts offense is, oof, it is hard to
They,
watch.
they just fired their offensive coordinator today.
There you go. They'll figure it out. They got too much talent with Taylor there to
Yeah,
not figure
you
it
think
out.
so? You think so?
Um, I'm not
But yeah,
sure about any other ones that we haven't hit. I made a trade for Justin Fields. I'm a little surprised that Edward gave away his Bears QB, but he said his heart couldn't handle having to watch the Bears and start him in Dynasty. Not that he needed to because he has Lamar Jackson, but now he gets Ayuk, who has looked pretty good these past few
oh,
weeks.
I like that. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and like I don't know, on a 49ers team, like, so he's not the primary, but he's behind Debo and now CMC, right? Who,
mhm.
like, it's notable when they play 14 games a season, right? And so a good guy to have.
Yeah, he's a good guy to have. Couple young guys getting traded. You don't often see that where it's like
Hmm.
young guys getting traded. I don't know some other ones. Kenny Pickett in a third for Dak Prescott for Zach. Another one of his magical flips. I guess hoping that Kenny Pickett turns into a solid quarterback. He's got some time. I'm trying to
Okay,
see any
man,
others.
that's something.
That is something, yeah, yeah. We'll see. This is a buy low, right? This is what this is. You're buying low on a guy who runs the offense and he's going to be there a while.
Oh yeah, that was the same. Yeah, not to, fine, whatever. But that was the same time I was offering a 2, 3, and a 4 for Dak.
Oh yeah.
Can you
Uh.
pick it in a second? Who knows? It's kind of salt in the wound that it's my third that he traded
Oof.
for
Yeah, isn't it
for
weird
Kenny.
to look around at teams and it's like, who has my picks now? I don't even.
How did that get there? Yeah,
How did I get to that team? Um.
I I think
Well.
it's I think it's interesting. I don't know. This dynasty stuff has been a lot of fun. I think, like, Zach called it out. I think earlier this week, but like, one of the things I've been looking forward to, less so now that, like, some of this is being diffused, but like there was a time, I don't know, what is it, like, of the 56 picks in next year's draft. I think there was a time where Zach, Edmondson, and Lewis had half of them. Uh,
Yeah.
and so just like, I don't know, like conserving some fab when they have to drop like 8 or 9 players off of their roster. Like, I think that's going to be another fascinating time of the year.
Yeah, roster cuts will be really interesting. There could be guys getting dropped because you want to keep that shiny new toy that you just drafted.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of trades are going to go down just to make sure that you kind of look at your roster, see how many picks can you actually make.
Yeah.
Can you afford to make 4 picks, or do you have to drop somebody good? Maybe you should trade
Yeah.
that person now, or trade a pick or
Yeah.
something. Package a pick with a player to upgrade. There's so many options with that, but even the rebuilders have to think about that piece right now. Like, what's their roster
Absolutely.
going to look like after a draft? But the rookie draft is super fun. I'm going to keep plugging it as like one of my favorite times in Dynasty. And I did this in this other league, like all online, and I'm just looking forward to the madness that'll be in person. Us just like trying to figure out who's drafting what player, who's he targeting, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. We're gonna have a lot of trades go
Absolutely.
down. I feel like it's gonna be
When
hard to keep track of.
when when Alex can trade all of his 26 picks,
It's
that
gonna
that
happen
kind of
immediately whenever that's
yeah.
available. Yeah, that practice. We're gonna see how well that turns out for him after a few years. We'll see what he
Yeah.
can get for those picks. Um, but yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. So
Yeah.
any any other thoughts? Kind of closing thoughts here. I
Um,
feel like we
no,
haven't talked
I
yet.
think one of the like things that I hadn't considered, like especially this is the second year with 14 teams, right? Like even last year, like that talent was spread out, and like
Hmm.
this year we have a 14 team league, but functionally like it's a 8 team, like a
Yeah.
in terms of like where the good players, like the currently good players, are distributed.
Yep.
Um, and so I'm sitting here in a first place that I don't deserve, like hoping to hold on to one of these buys because the first round of the playoffs are going to be brutal. You
Right.
know,
Yeah, you definitely want that buy. What is your let's take a look at your schedule really
I've
fast.
got
Just
I've got you this week, which
good for
is
you.
I don't know. You blew up this past week. I don't want to.
I traded my whole team. I have nothing left.
I did appreciate.
It's Justin Fields and DJ Moore. So I think you're gonna be all right. So you got
Well,
me this week. Next week
you got
you have
Garrett Mills
Chase.
here.
No, I have Chase. Never mind. You've got Eddie.
Yeah, I think I've got. Sorry, I don't know how to. Yeah, so I've got you and then Eddie. I think I don't have the greatest closing,
You got
uh,
Chase.
which makes sense based on my points. Yeah, so
Right.
Eddie, uh, and him, and then after that, Justin, who like maybe that becomes I don't want to say auto win by then, but like maybe he has I don't know, maybe he's dropped out or maybe he is like gone all in at that point. I feel like that's an interesting
Yeah. He's just kind
just like
of he might just sit on his current team and score a bunch of points.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
like whatever. You got Burrow and Waddle, like there are worse things to to
build
build
around.
on.
Yeah, no, he's got some great pieces to build around. Okay, so then the last week you've got uh,
Walter, I
Waldrop.
think.
So
Yeah.
you got an interesting schedule. It doesn't seem like crazy. It's not like five playoff teams or something like that.
Yeah, and I don't think like I'll be either, favored or like 50-50 on most of them.
Yep.
Or maybe so. Who knows? We'll see.
So, are you gonna? You got to break that playoff streak this year, right? I mean, this is the year. Dynasty was your jam, apparently.
I did text Lewis like in the middle of listening to your all's podcast where you were like, okay, all of these teams are 5-2 and they all have cake schedules.
Yes.
And I'm like, am I gonna miss the playoff?
Oh, I hope not for your sake.
Which I think would have been more of a concern if I had lost to Bryce this week.
But now
Um,
you've got that, and Bryce will have to. Yeah, and hopefully you can take a bye, and then it's just 2 games, and who knows what happens
yeah,
in those 2 games? Anything could happen, but that gives you the best chance. So
yeah, I think a little. Yeah, I guess like to my point about the buys, like everybody in the playoffs is going to have a really good team this
yep.
year.
Well,
Like as things stand right now, Alex and Bryce are the fifth and sixth seeds, and like that's just a joke.
terrifying. Yes,
Yeah,
that's terrifying. Those are 2 very good teams. Um, well, it is about that time, so I think
yeah,
it was great to have you on. Great to talk some trades. We'll have to
yeah.
have you
No,
back
this is
on.
fun.
We'll have to
Thanks
have
for
you back.
doing these. This has been a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, absolutely, no problem. I enjoy. I get to talk to everybody, so I'm the lucky one here. I get to just hang out and talk football with people. So, um, but yeah, we'll have you on again. Maybe like more people. We can talk trades or playoffs or something coming up. And wish you the best of luck. And I hope you're
Thanks, man.
getting some lots of good sleep.
Ronnie Rivers and Calvin Ridley are available for a quarterback. Just package if you're planning for the future.
Excellent, Ronnie Rivers. I hope he gets traded with Sincere McCormick. All right,
All right,
peace
buddy. I'll
out.
talk to you later.